everyone and welcome back. At the moment the building works are delayed for about a month or so I thought it best we have a look at some arcade restoring tips. Surprisingly, I've had a large number of requests who want more arcade restoration videos. This is the Afterburner cradle. It's the main part you sit in. Due to the machine moving back and forth, you get heaps of scrapes and most of the colour wears off over time. After 30 years of use, you'd expect this. Although it's hard to see, this was supposed to be red. It's a part of the missile. This is the rear, the middle, and the front. Now this has been masked up, we can go ahead and spray it. Now this is our paint. I use Trident. A lot of people use Jo Sonja's. There's all different brands. It's whatever you're comfortable with. Some paints are better than others, but most of them are pretty much the same. You've got to stick with the paint you're comfortable with. Okay, so we're going to start off with red, and that's going to be our base. But we've got to find a part of the machine that's not worn out so we can get a colour sample. So we're going to come over to this part of the machine. This part of Afterburner 2 is not worn out, so we can get a good sample of this. Okay, so we're going to start off with the red. So I'm just going to apply a bit in a tray here, grab the red, and apply it to the paint. So as you can see, when we apply our red, it's a lot darker or more red. We've got to introduce some white or even maybe another colour like yellow to the base. Okay, so now we're going to add some white. All we need is a little bit at this stage, just to try and find that right colour red. You can see just by adding a little bit, it's almost gone like a pinkish. So I've probably introduced too much white. I'll just add a couple more drops of red and mix it together. We're definitely starting to see a different colour red than the base colour. Once we're happy with our colour, we'll try again. I can already see, and I don't know if the camera's picking it up, that the colour is starting to match the original Afterburner colour. Okay, so after a few goes, I've pretty much got the right colour. It looks a bit shiny on camera, but to the naked eye, that's actually very, very close. What I do sometimes is let it dry and make sure it's the right colour match. So now the colours have had a chance to dry, you can see these two are definitely a lot darker and this one's almost invisible. I can slightly see it with my eye, but I've noticed on the camera I can't pick it up at all. Okay, so now I've got the colour ratio down between our base colour, which is red, and maybe a couple of drops of white, depending on where you're putting it. You can mix it in a container, or you can even mix it on the fly. I don't recommend this at the start. Once you experience, you can actually mix it in the pot. This is a Iwata spray gun. It's pretty much one of the best. It's made in Japan, and it's for very fine arts. One thing you should never skimp on is a good spray gun. They're not that expensive. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a few drops of red in, or probably a bit more than a few drops, but about half the little tank here. I don't need a lot because this actually goes a long way. I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but that's it there. Yep. And then I'll probably only need one drop of red, of white I should say. Maybe give it one more. And what I like to do is mix it up in the pot. And again, I'll go back and I can already see that colour starting to lighten up. I don't know, as I said, I don't know if the camera's going to be able to pick it up. It's starting to definitely lighten up to that nice colour we had before that matches in with Afterburner. And probably when this machine was new, that colour could have been slightly more red, but we're going to match it off that one because that's its originality there. So I just put a little bit on, and I can already see it's almost invisible. So we're going to stick with this. So now becomes the spraying part. And again, it might look easy just to quickly mix colours, but it comes with experience. At the start I was pretty bad, and that's why Mandy's done most of the work. So now becomes the spraying. Now how these guns work is you push down on the gun, and that'll just let out air. But if I slide this back, that'll introduce paint into the cartridge there. Well, I think it's a cartridge. That'll allow paint to run down and obviously air spraying. And you can set it really fine to the point where it's like a needle head, or you can have it a little bit thicker, probably about that thick. There's not a lot of work that needs to be done here. Once we spray it, then we've got to seal it with an acrylic sealer such as a clear. Otherwise we can just rub with water, we can rub water over it, and it'll pretty much wash off that paint. That's what I did here. When I was applying those paints, even though they dry, we can just wipe them off with a wet cloth and then dry them, and it's like they've never been there. So it's very important with watercolours that you seal it with an acrylic or something like that. Just something that doesn't dissolve in water. Okay, let's go. Okay, that's kind of our first layer, even though I did a couple of layers in. But it's good to do a nice thin layer to allow it to adhere to the wood in this case, and let it dry. And then you can go over it with probably another 2 layers, and that'll probably do it. As long as you see the red, that's when you should stop. Building it up too much, you can have problems later on, even if you seal it. If a fingernail happens to dig into it, you can kind of basically pierce the paint. So you want just a couple of layers, you don't want to go too over the top. Okay, that's our third and final coat, and that's a nice flat red, and that's exactly what we want. We can't see any grain or any other problems with it, so now we move on. Okay, so we've pretty much finished our third layer. Some needed a fourth, but as long as it's red and it's fairly flat, you're right to go. So what you can do is use a heat gun or even a hairdryer, but it's best to get a professional heat gun. They're not too expensive. I set mine on at about 90 degrees. So you don't want to apply too much heat because it can actually bubble. So you just want a nice bit of heat, like it's on a hot summer day. And then you'll notice the paint starting to dry, and this is a matte finish, this paint. Once we see it being a matte, we can apply our clear. Okay, so we've put the clear on outside, we've brought the machine back inside, and now what we're going to do is take off the masking tape and see how it's come out. Okay, so the masking tape's off and it looks pretty damn good actually. So there's still a few things to do around the red. It's kind of letting down the red a little bit. But once the black's touched up here and there, and once we've got the blue resprayed and the white, it's going to look super. It'll pretty much look brand new. Okay, so this is the other side. As you can see, it's really looking good. That missile, it was pretty much not even seen. It was almost white. So, and the blues and all that, that's been resprayed. And even looking at it very closely, yeah, you're gonna see a few flaws here and there. You can't have it perfect. Well, you can, but you can go nuts doing it. But once it's in the machine and looking at it even from 2 feet away, you will just never know. It'll look like a brand spanking new machine. So that's the restoration of Afterburner at the moment. We'll have a quick look at something else. Okay, we're looking at an upright cabinet that's currently being restored. Now uprights are pretty easy to restore. They've got a Laminex coating usually around them, which is very tough. But you might sometimes need to do touch-ups, and they'll usually be seen. It's very hard to match up the colour of Laminex. Lights are very important to me. I like making sure the lights are working. You have a good Mylar in there, which is basically saying the game or latest game or whatever it may be, in this case Street Fighter 2. The other very important thing is to have any highlights like your blacks. These things can rust. Now this machine here hasn't had the blacks touched up yet. And you can see it's been kind of rusted away. People will be up against the machine, leaning, playing the game. The paint gets worn after a period of time, and you'll see moisture will get into there and kind of rust out this hinge and even the bolts. And even when you're playing, you'll notice there's you get a bit of rust around the bolts. And I'll replace them, and you try and either paint them or get them anodized. But as you can see, with this one's been sprayed and it just makes the cabinet come alive. This one still has to be done, and it's only a matter of masking up the the surrounding areas and leaving the bolts and this hinge vacant. You can even do the bolts of this coin mechanism. And then that's basically it. It'll come up like this. I still haven't taken the tape off there. So this was all masked up in that eject coin. So I've still got to take off the tape on that. And then, yeah, as you can see, it just makes the cabinet look a lot better, more pleasing to the eye. That's about it for the arcade tips. This segment's probably gone long enough. That's all I've got at the moment. Hopefully next week I'll have some more news on Building Works and probably look at a couple of new games, I think. Anyway, thanks for watching and bye for now.